"You're not coming." Deshawn ripped his wife's boarding pass in half at the gate. The terminal went quiet. His mistress smiled and walked next to him toward first class. Everyone watched Renee, waiting for her to fall apart. She didn't. She took out her phone and made one call. Then she sat down because the flight had not boarded yet, and the person in seat 1A was already answering. The gate area at Terminal D was full that Tuesday morning. Families pulling rolling bags, business travelers staring at phones, a young couple sharing earbuds near the window and watching planes sit still on the tarmac in the early gray light. It was the kind of normal crowd that becomes a witness without ever choosing to. The kind that remembers what they saw for years after. Not because they wanted to, but because some things cut themselves into memory whether you welcome them or not. Renee had been standing near the window with her carry-on when Deshawn walked up beside her, took the boarding pass from her hand without a word, and ripped it straight down the middle. The sound was small, a paper sound, but the terminal heard it the way a room hears a glass break. That split second of shared stillness before anyone fully knows what happened. A child sitting 2 rows away looked up from a tablet. The gate agent's eyes lifted from her screen and then dropped back down. Nobody said anything because nobody knew yet what kind of moment this was. Camille stood 2 steps behind him. She was wearing a cream blazer and dark travel pants, her natural hair pinned at the crown, a single gold bracelet on her left wrist with a pearl charm in the center. She didn't say anything when Deshawn tore the ticket. She didn't need to. The slow pull of her lips, the way her chin lifted just a little when she met Renee's eyes, that was enough. It was the face of a woman who had decided that winning was not enough, that the other person also needed to see it clearly. She held the look for 2 full seconds. Then she looked away as if Renee had already become part of the background. Deshawn put the first-class boarding pass in Camille's hand and turned toward the boarding lane without looking back. He said something to the gate agent that Renee could not hear. The gate agent nodded with no expression. A man near the charging station looked away from the scene with the careful way of someone who did not want to get involved. A woman with a sleeping toddler on her shoulder watched Renee with something close to grief on her face. The kind of face that says, "I have been somewhere near this before, and I would not wish it on anyone." Renee looked at the 2 torn halves of her boarding pass on the floor. Then she bent down slowly, on purpose, without any sign of shame, picked up both pieces, folded them once along the crease that was already there, and slipped them into the inside pocket of her coat. She smoothed the pocket flat with 2 fingers. She did not look at the boarding lane. She did not raise her voice. She turned, walked to the nearest row of seats, sat down, crossed her legs, and took out her phone. She made one call. She spoke for 30 seconds, her voice low and steady, and when she ended the call, she put the phone face down on her knee and sat with her hands completely still. Her breathing was calm. Her eyes followed the jetway door as it opened for boarding with the face of someone watching a planned event arrive right on time. There was a woman sitting 3 rows away who would later tell her sister about this moment on the phone that evening. She said she had never seen anything like it. Not the tearing of the ticket. She had seen cruelty in airports before. The special ugly kind of a relationship breaking apart in front of strangers. What she had never seen before was what came after. The way Renee's face looked during that 30-second call. Like a person who had practiced a long and hard piece of music for months and was now simply playing it. Like someone checking that the last instrument was in tune before the performance began. She wasn't left behind. She was exactly where she needed to be. 12 years earlier, Renee had been sitting in the back row of a church fundraiser when a man in a blue dress shirt stood up to present a business idea to a room that was not very interested in hearing one. He was 29, nervous in the way people are when they care about something more than they want to show, and the slideshow behind him kept losing its connection to the projector. She had laughed, not at him, but at the situation. And he had caught her laughing, and instead of being embarrassed, he laughed too. That was how it started. That small shared laugh in the back of a church hall, and the feeling that came with it that she had found someone who did not take himself too seriously. She had been wrong about that in the end, but not at the beginning. At the beginning, Deshawn was easy to love. He was ambitious and generous and funny in the dry, quiet way she liked. He had ideas that were too big for his budget, and she believed in them before the money was there. When he talked about the logistics company he wanted to build, she listened not the way people listen to be polite, but the way people listen when they plan to help. She co-signed the first business loan because her credit was better than his, and because she understood what he was building, and because she was the kind of woman who went all the way in when she chose something. She moved when the company needed to grow. She managed the books on weekends for 2 years without pay. She gave up a promotion at the hospital she had been working toward for 6 years because the timing did not fit around Deshawn's expansion schedule. She did these things not as a sacrifice, not with resentment growing underneath, but because she believed the life they were building together was strong and real and going somewhere she wanted to be. The first sign she noticed was not dramatic. For years, Deshawn had talked through his business decisions with her at the kitchen table. Contracts, possible clients, expansion plans, risks he was thinking about. One evening she realized he had not done that in 4 months. She sat with that realization for a moment, then she let it go. Then it came back. Then came the calls he took outside. Not 1 or 2 which could be explained, but many, a pattern. Then came the travel schedule that stopped including details. Then came the way he corrected her in front of people. Small corrections. The kind that could look like helpfulness from across a room, but felt different up close. He would say, "That's not really how it works." Or, "Let me handle it." Or, "You don't need to know that part." Each time it happened in front of friends or co-workers, something tiny shifted in the room. A change in who seemed to hold the power between them. And Renee would say nothing and smile and move the conversation another way. But she was watching. She had always been the kind of woman who watched quietly, completely, without saying what she was keeping track of. The company dinner was in the fall of the year before. Deshawn had invited several key staff members and 2 possible investors to a restaurant downtown. He introduced Camille as his office manager, a job she had held for 8 months. She was calm and well-spoken and attentive to Deshawn in a way that was not quite professional and not quite anything else. Renee shook her hand and said it was nice to meet her. They spoke briefly about a conference Camille had recently attended. Camille was articulate. She was also wearing a gold bracelet with a single pearl charm in the center. It was a small thing, a piece of jewelry most people would not remember. But Renee noticed it the way the mind sometimes marks things without being told to, storing them in a place below conscious choice for reasons that only become clear later. She said nothing about it. She finished her dinner. She smiled for photographs. She rode home beside Deshawn in a silence he mistook for contentment. She was adding things up. She just had not reached the total yet. It was a Wednesday night in February when Deshawn left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. He had gone upstairs to take a call, which was normal by then, the calls upstairs, the closed doors. What was not normal was that the email thread on the screen was already open, already loaded, and Renee was standing close enough to read the subject line without moving toward it. She moved toward it. The thread ran 47 messages deep, covering 14 months. It was a chain between Deshawn, his older brother Terrence, a corporate lawyer, and a financial restructuring firm based in Atlanta. The words in the emails were technical and layered, the kind of words built to be understood only by people who already know what they are looking at. But Renee had managed company books for 2 years. She understood the language. She read from the beginning to the newest message, moving through it with the careful method of someone who is not looking for proof of a suspicion, but for the full picture of a fact. The picture was this. For the past 18 months, Terrence had been drafting documents to erase Renee's equity share in the company. Because she had co-signed the original business loan, she was legally a silent equity holder, something Deshawn had apparently never fully thought through when he started planning to leave. The restructuring was meant to take away her share before a divorce filing. The divorce was not being talked about as a possibility. It had a date attached to it. Terrence had found the legal method, drafted the documents, and started the filing process. The Atlanta firm had confirmed that the plan could work if it was finished before Renee was legally told about the divorce. She read Terrence's name in those emails 14 times. Terrence, who had been in their lives since before the marriage. Terrence, who called Renee his sister when he introduced her to co-workers. Terrence, who had sat at their dining room table 2 weeks ago for Jalen's birthday dinner, who had eaten 2 pieces of cake and asked her for the recipe, who had hugged her at the door when he left and said she had built something real here, and who had driven away after already filing documents meant to take half of it from her. Renee stood at the counter for 6 minutes. She did not touch the laptop. She closed it exactly the way she had found it, wiped the counter around it clean of a coffee ring that had been there before she came in, turned off the kitchen light, and walked upstairs. She made tea. She got into bed. She lay on her side and watched the ceiling while the house settled around her, while Deshawn's call kept going behind the closed office door down the hall, while the heat turned on and the refrigerator hummed and her son slept 3 rooms away. She lay there until well after midnight, and by the time she finally closed her eyes, something inside her had finished moving and arrived somewhere very quiet and very clear. Past shock, past grief, past the place where a person cries into a thing that was once only a thought. She was back in the kitchen before Deshawn came downstairs the next morning. Coffee was ready. Jalen's lunch was packed. She asked if he wanted eggs. He said he was running late. She said, "Okay, have a good day." He did not look at her face when he left. There was one line in the email thread she had not understood yet. Near the bottom, Terrence had written to the restructuring firm, the Geneva closing confirmed for the 14th. She did not know what was closing in Geneva on the 14th. She understood that she needed to find out. She understood that she had time, and that time was now the most important thing she had. She started finding out the next morning. Patricia Okafor ran her practice from a 3rd-floor office on the east side of downtown, and she had seen asset stripping cases before, seen them in every shape that bitterness and greed and arrogance can make over a long career in corporate lawsuits. She was thorough and direct and not interested in giving comfort. She reviewed Renee's documents across 2 meetings and reached a conclusion with the speed of someone who had seen this pattern enough times to recognize it fast. Because the original loan co-signature had never been formally separated from equity under the company's first operating agreement, a detail Deshawn's early lawyer had never properly closed, and Terrence had apparently missed or ignored while setting up the dissolution, Renee's share was still legally active. The restructuring Terrence had filed was fraudulent. If completed, it would count as intentional financial fraud against a recorded equity holder. Patricia said this without any special emphasis, the way she said everything, and then she put her pen down and asked Renee what she wanted to do about it. Renee told her. Patricia wrote it down and said she could have the counter filing ready within 6 weeks. She asked if Renee needed anything else. Renee said she would be in touch about timing. She thanked Patricia, picked up her bag, and took the elevator down to the street, and stood in the cold for a moment before walking to her car. Over the next 6 weeks, Renee did nothing at home that looked like preparation. She made dinner. She helped Jalen with homework and went to his soccer games and drove him to his Saturday morning art class. She went to work at the hospital. She met her deadlines. She was present and unremarkable. At Deshawn's company anniversary reception, she wore a dress she had owned for 3 years, smiled in 3 photographs with people she recognized from the restructuring emails, and showed nothing. Deshawn, growing more confident every week, became careless in the ways overconfident people always do. He stopped switching apps when she entered the room. He stopped making long explanations for late evenings. He had already decided that she did not know, and so he stopped acting like a man who needed to be careful around her. Camille came to the house twice during those 6 weeks. The first time, she appeared at the front door with a contract Deshawn had supposedly left at the office, holding the folder with the special care of someone who wants to be seen being helpful. The second time, she came with a venue suggestion for a business dinner, and she stood at the doorway a few seconds longer than the errand required. Both times, Camille's face carried the same upward tilt from the airport, that quiet look of a woman who wanted the other woman to know where things stood. Both times, Renee took whatever was being delivered, said thank you, and closed the door. She gave Camille nothing back, Not hostility, not pain, not even a sign that she understood the hidden meaning. Nothing. Because nothing was all that was deserved, and because a woman who is 3 moves ahead does not waste energy on the opening. The invitation came from Deshawn on a Sunday morning. He sat across from her at the kitchen table and told her he had a major freight conference in Geneva coming up. Key investors, important contracts, relationships worth building in person. He said he had booked 2 first-class tickets, that it might be good for them to travel together, see the city. He said it with the smoothness of a man who had practiced something until the practice marks no longer showed. Renee looked at him across the table and said it sounded wonderful. She said she had been hoping they could spend some real time together. She smiled in a way she had learned from 12 years of watching him need to be believed. That evening, after Jalen was asleep, she called Patricia. She said, "He took the bait." What Deshawn did not know, what Terence did not know, what Camille did not know, was that Patricia had already contacted Eleanor Voss 2 weeks earlier. Eleanor led the main investment group behind the Geneva closing, a private equity firm with positions on 3 continents and a reputation for moving carefully before it moved at all. She was strict and exacting and did not put her signature on documents she had not fully read. When Patricia sent her a summary of the equity problems with supporting documents, Eleanor had read it, asked 3 exact questions, received 3 exact answers, and agreed to a private meeting before the closing session. She had booked her own seat on the Geneva flight before Deshawn had even thought to book Renee's. She was sitting in seat 1A. Everything was already ready. The only step left was the flight itself, and the flight was already booked, and Renee had already packed her navy blazer in a separate part of her carry-on and pressed it the night before. Because when the moment came, she meant to look exactly like herself. Composed, prepared, and dressed for the room she was about to walk into. Back in the terminal, 8 minutes after Deshawn and Camille disappeared through the jetway, a gate agent crossed the boarding area and stopped in front of Renee. She did not come with sympathy or with the careful manner of someone managing a scene. She came with the quiet efficiency of a person who had expected to do this. A gate agent answering a request that had been made through the airline's service desk 30 minutes before Renee had even reached the airport that morning. She held out a new boarding pass. Seat 2A, upgraded. Renee thanked her, stood, picked up her carry-on, and joined the boarding line without hurry. She walked through first class at the pace of someone who belonged there. Deshawn was in the window seat with Camille beside him in the aisle seat, their bags already overhead. Camille had her shoes off and a travel pillow set behind her neck. She had ordered something from the flight attendant. Deshawn was looking at his phone with the careful posture of a man pretending to be absorbed. He saw Renee from the corner of his eye when she was 3 rows back. He turned. The order of his face changed quickly but clearly. Surprise, then a quick try at composure, then something slower and harder to name. A recalculation, a reach for a story that would explain this and not finding one fast enough. He leaned toward Camille and said something low. Camille looked back briefly, her eyes finding Renee. And then she faced forward and reached for her drink with a steadiness that had clearly taken effort. Renee did not meet either of their eyes. She took her seat in 2A, stowed her bag, fastened her seatbelt, and opened her folder of documents on the tray table. She reviewed them with the same careful quiet she had brought to everything she had done over the last 6 weeks. Not reading, confirming, checking that the structure was still strong. The way an engineer checks a bridge one last time, not because she doubts it, but because she built it and the responsibility is hers. The woman in seat 1A had not turned around. She had her own documents spread across her tray table, a pair of reading glasses pushed halfway down her nose, working through a thick packet with the focused efficiency of someone who treats time in the air as time that belongs to her. She was in her early 60s, silver at her temples, wearing a charcoal blazer that said nothing about itself and everything about the woman inside it. A flight attendant moved through first class with the pre-departure pass. She paused at 1A and leaned slightly. "Ms. Voss, can I get you anything before we take off?" The name moved through the cabin like a special kind of silence. The silence of a word landing in the one place it was always going to land. Deshawn's hand on the armrest went still. He did not look back right away. The pause before he turned was long enough to show that he already knew what he would see when he did. When he finally turned, he looked at the top of the headrest in front of him, at the silver showing above it. And his face did something that had no acting left in it at all. Just understanding. The kind that comes too late and knows it. Camille put her hand on his forearm. He didn't move toward it or away from it. His eyes stayed on the back of seat 1A. The plane began to move. Renee watched the runway stretch beneath them through the window, the terminal pulling away, the grey morning opening into the grey sky above it. And her face was the face of a woman watching something she had built from nothing begin to work exactly as she had designed it to. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Something quieter than either. The special piece of having fully prepared for something and now simply being inside it. Behind her, Deschamps did not speak to Camille for the first hour of the flight. Camille ordered champagne when the attendant came through, more deliberately than she needed to, angling toward the aisle so the movement was visible to the row behind. She leaned toward Deschamps and said something low, probably meant to steady him, to remind him of what they were flying toward. He answered with one syllable. She turned back to the window. Renee did not watch any of this. She did not need to. She had a folder of documents, a plan that was already moving, and 7 hours of quiet in the sky to sit inside her own. Stillness. She ordered water. She reviewed 2 pages of notes. She closed the folder and looked out at the clouds below the wing, white and even and going nowhere. And she let herself exist in the special calm of a person who has already done everything that can be done and is now simply waiting for the world to catch up. The conference room at the Geneva Hotel took up the northwest corner of the 4th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows on one wall and the old city visible through the glass in the heavy golden light of late afternoon. A long mahogany table, 12 leather chairs, water carafes, and a coffee service already arranged and cooling a little by the time the parties arrived. It was the kind of room that had hosted 100 serious decisions. It was about to host one more. Terence arrived with Deschamps and at once arranged his documents the way men do when they need to feel in control of a room. He greeted the other parties with the efficient warmth of a lawyer who sees these situations as controlled environments. The man from a London investment firm, a representative from a Dubai capital group, the Swiss lawyer handling the local legal close. All present. All settled. The room looked, from the outside, like a closing. Deschamps sat at the table and straightened his jacket. He had not slept well on the flight. He had not spoken more than 12 words to Camille in the car from the hotel. He was present in the way people are when they are managing too many things at once, keeping the surface calm while the underneath does its own work. Eleanor Voss entered 3 minutes after the meeting was called. She did not apologize for the 3 minutes. She shook hands briefly and efficiently around the table, nodded at the 2 video screens where remote participants were joining. One of them, on the far left screen, showed Patricia Okafor in her downtown office, suit jacket on, documents visible on the desk beside her laptop. And she took the chair at the head of the table, settled her documents in front of her, and poured herself water from the carafe. She looked at the room and said, "Before we open the closing documents, I need to address a legal matter that my team flagged this week." She said it the way a person says the weather is changing. Not as a question, not as an accusation. As a statement of something that was already true and had been true before any of them walked into this room. She slid document packets to each seat. The room was quiet for 40 seconds while people read. Deschamps picked up the first page. His eyes moved across it and then stopped. He put the page down and looked at Terence. Terence was reading with the special stillness of a man who recognizes every word because he wrote them. The door behind Deschamps opened. Renee walked in. She was wearing the navy blazer from her carry-on, her natural hair pinned back neatly. She moved to the empty seat beside Patricia's screen with the confidence of someone who had chosen it ahead of time. She set 2 things on the table in front of her. A manila folder and the 2 halves of the torn boarding pass from gate 14B, taken from the inside pocket of her coat, unfolded and laid flat side by side on the mahogany with one smooth movement of her hand. She did not explain them. They were not legal evidence in any strict sense. They were something else. A line drawn, a fact accepted. A statement made without words to the only person in the room who understood their full weight. Deshawn looked at them. His throat moved. He looked away and then back. The way eyes returned to something they would rather not see. Renee spoke to Eleanor. She talked for just over 4 minutes. She did not raise her voice at any point. She did not use the word betrayal. She used equity structure, fraudulent dissolution, documented timeline, legal remedy. She named Terrence directly and walked through his part in it with the accuracy of someone reading from a record that had already been checked. The dates of the filings, the messages with the Atlanta firm, the date of Jalen's birthday dinner, the 12 years of co-signature history that had made the company's first loan possible and had never been legally separated from equity. She said that Patricia had filed an emergency motion in federal court that morning, which had frozen the restructuring while a full audit was pending. She said the Geneva closing could not legally go forward. She finished speaking and folded her hands on the table in front of her. The room went silent in a way that had nothing to do with no sound, and everything to do with the presence of something undeniable. The Swiss lawyer set his pen down beside his documents. The man from London looked at the window. The Dubai representative's face showed nothing, which was its own clear judgment. Patricia, on the screen, sat quietly with her hands folded in almost the same position as Renee's. Deshawn stood up. The chair scraped backward, and the sound of it cut through the room. He said Renee was vindictive. He said she had always resented his success. He said she had no right to be in this room, that this was a business meeting, that whatever personal complaints she had could be handled through their lawyers and not in front of his investors. His voice rose by the 3rd sentence and cracked a little by the 5th. Every person at the table watched him the way you watch something moving toward the edge of something else. Eleanor Voss waited. She gave him the whole space for it, letting every word land and settle. When he stopped speaking, she looked at him with complete calm and said, "Mr. Deshawn, sit down." He sat down. Terrence cleared his throat and began a sentence. Patricia, from the screen, spoke one sentence, a citation from the State Bar's ethics code about lawyer participation in client fraud. And Terrence's sentence ended before it had properly begun. He put his pen on the table and looked at the surface of it. Eleanor looked around the room. She said she would be withdrawing her investment group from the closing while a full legal review took place. She said this without anger and without drama, the way a person states something that was already decided before she walked in. She closed her documents and stood and said she hoped everyone had a safe return to their own cities. At the door, she paused. She turned back, not to the room, but directly to Renee. What passed between them lasted only a moment, not warmth exactly, something more exact than warmth. Recognition. Two women who understood, without needing to talk about it, what preparation costs and what it is worth. Then Eleanor left. The door closed behind her. And the room, the closing room, the room Terrence had been building toward for 18 months, the room Deshawn believed was his greatest arrival, simply ended. Not with an argument, not with drama, but with the quiet, total, final sound of something collapsing from the inside. Deshawn sat at the table after the others had quietly gathered their papers and excused themselves. Terrence left without looking at him. The Swiss lawyer offered a brief, professional apology for the situation and closed the door gently behind him. The room emptied in under 4 minutes, the way rooms empty when the reason for being in them no longer exists. Renee gathered the torn halves of the boarding pass, folded them back along the same crease, and returned them to her coat pocket. She picked up her folder. She stood, pushed in her chair, nodded once to Patricia's screen. Patricia nodded back and ended the call. Renee walked to the door. She put her hand on the handle. She did not look back at Deshawn. Clear's throat. She opened the door and walked into the hallway, and the door swung shut behind her as naturally as any door closes after anyone leaves any room. Camille had been waiting in the hotel lobby for 3 hours and 50 minutes when the text arrived. It said, "Something came up. Handle checkout." She read it twice. She set the phone down on the cushion beside her and looked at the atrium ceiling for a long moment. Then she picked up a bag, rode the elevator to the floor they had shared, packed her things into her suitcase with the special efficiency of a woman who had done this kind of leaving before, and checked out at the front desk without extra conversation. She took a separate car to the airport. The only seat open on her rebooking was in economy. She took it. The restructuring deal died completely within 48 hours. Eleanor Voss's withdrawal was the structural piece. Once the main capital stepped back, the structure of the closing fell apart. The London investor formally withdrew by email the next morning. The Dubai group sent a one-sentence notice that same afternoon. They gave no explanation because experienced investors do not explain their exits from deals flagged by federal audit motions. The Geneva closing was over. Deschamps' company entered a formal legal review. Operations continued in a reduced form. The day-to-day freight work went on. Clients were served. Trucks moved. But 3 major contracts were suspended until the equity dispute was resolved. The company that had been on the edge of its biggest expansion was suddenly and very publicly on the edge of something else entirely. Terence's name appeared in the audit documents with the kind of detail that documents show when someone has kept careful records. The State Bar opened a disciplinary inquiry within 30 days of Patricia's filing. His practice entered what his assistant described to a co-worker as a difficult period, the kind that does not end quickly because it was not created quickly. 14 years of reputation, managed and built and carefully maintained, entered a process that would take longer to finish than anyone around him wanted to think about. Back home, the social map shifted the way it does when truth starts moving through a community, not loudly, not all at once, but steadily, the way water moves through something porous. Their church, the neighborhood network, the mutual friends who had known Renee as Deschamps' steady and capable wife for more than a decade, all of it began to adjust. Deschamps had built his public warmth partly on hers, her professional standing at the hospital, her presence at community events, the way people spoke about her when he was not in the room. It had linked him to someone decent and trusted, and he had never thought to count that because he had never thought to be grateful for it. Without her, that warmth simply did not carry over. He called her twice the first week after they returned. She did not answer. He sent 2 text messages that she read and did not answer. He showed up at the house on a Thursday evening and rang the bell, and she came to the door and stood in the open frame and let him speak for 2 minutes. And then she said she had already spoken with a family lawyer and suggested he do the same. She said it without heat. She said it the way you say something that has already been decided. He stood on the porch for a moment after she closed the door, and then he got back in his car. Terence sent a message through their family's aunt, a woman who had helped raise both brothers and who had always loved Renee with the simple affection of someone who could clearly see what a person was worth. The aunt called Renee on a Sunday afternoon, listened to one sentence of what she had been asked to pass along, and told Renee she would not be delivering it. She said she was sorry. She said she had always known Renee was good people. They talked for 20 minutes about other things. And at the end of the call, the aunt said, "You keep going, baby." Renee said she planned to. Camille showed up again 9 weeks later at an industry event on the other side of the city, photographed beside a man none of them knew. Deschamps heard about it through a shared contact and said nothing to anyone in response. But 2 people who knew him well and saw his face when he heard said he looked like a man watching a door close, not with anger, but with the special expression of someone who finally understands what he has lost and understands it too late. He didn't lose everything because Renee fought him. He lost everything because the life he had built was always standing on someone else's foundation, and the moment she stepped off it, there was nothing underneath. 18 months later, on a Saturday afternoon in October, Renee's office building was quiet in the way only office buildings are quiet on weekends. A specific, clean quiet, all the background noise of the week gone, just the hum of the elevator system and the faint sound of the street 4 floors below. The afternoon light came through her window at the long, low angle that belongs to fall, cutting across her desk and warming its surface. Her desk held 3 neat stacks, client intake files for 2 new hospital accounts she had been developing, a proposal for a regional healthcare network she had spent 6 weeks writing and was now in its final draft. and a white coffee mug she had brought from home because she liked the weight of it in her hand and the sound it made when she set it down on wood. The mug had nothing written on it. It was just a good mug. Small things like that mattered to her now in a way they had not when she was busy surviving something. The sound of sneakers moving fast down the hallway reached her a few seconds before the door swung open. Jalen came in at full speed, 11 years old and completely unaware of the afternoon's quiet, holding up a soccer cleat with the ankle strap buckle broken clean off its housing, showing it to her with the urgent seriousness children bring to shoe emergencies. Renee turned her chair toward him. She gave the cleat the full attention it deserved. Jalen explained the situation in detail, including his theory about why the buckle had failed, which involved the exact way he had landed from a header in the second half of last week's practice. She listened without interrupting. Then she opened the top drawer of her desk, moved aside a stapler and 2 pens, and found a wide black binder clip. She fitted it through the strap loop and fastened it tightly enough to hold for an afternoon. She told him she would get the real buckle fixed after lunch. He looked at the binder clip with the thoughtful doubt of an 11-year-old judging adult improvising. He tested it with 2 fingers. He decided it would hold. He ran back out, sneakers loud in the hallway, and the door swung slowly behind him, not quite closing all the way. Through the gap, Renee could see the frosted glass panel mounted beside the hallway door. On it, in clean dark letters, her name and below it, the name of her firm, Healthcare Consulting. Her name on the glass, her firm, her building, her accounts, her proposal on her desk in the afternoon light. She turned back to the page in front of her. She picked up her pen. Outside, the city moved through its Saturday without hurry. The light on her hands was warm and steady. On a Tuesday the month before, Deshawn had been driving through this part of the city on his way to a meeting, and he slowed when the building came into view. He had pulled to the curb and sat with the engine running, looking at the name on the glass. He had sat there for a moment that lasted longer than moments usually do. Then he had put the car in drive and kept going. Some women cry at the gate. Some women sit down, make one call, and let the truth board first. Dignity is not loud. It does not chase, does not argue, does not perform itself for the people who hurt it or explain itself to the people who watched. It simply keeps going into the next room, the next season, the next quiet Saturday afternoon with a child running in from the hallway, and a pen moving across a page and a name on a glass door that belongs to nobody else. That is what it looks like on the other side. Not a victory speech, not a final confrontation, just a woman at her desk in the afternoon light, her son's footsteps fading down the hallway, her work in front of her, and all the noise of what was done to her finally, completely behind her. She picked up her pen and kept writing. The page in front of her was not finished, and neither was she, and both of those things felt exactly right. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to remember what dignity looks like. And if you want more stories about women who never broke when they were supposed to, you know where to find them.